And just so Richmond doesn't become like Washington, I've introduced a constitutional amendment. Why did I do this? Well, I want to cause trouble, among other things. But this year we passed $130 million in taxes and fees, new taxes and fees, that we never voted on separately. This was added the next to last day of the budget as a big surprise. It was a big surprise. And the choice was you either vote for this budget with these hidden taxes and fees that you never voted on, or you vote to shut the government down. I voted to shut the government down. I did that as a bargaining chip to come back with this constitutional amendment, House Joint Resolution 496, which says we will not include fees, taxes, or fines in the state budget, because this bill should stand alone. Taxes should stand alone. Now, why do I do that? Where do I get my moral advice? Mark Twain. Now listen to this. He says, secrecy is the natural refuge of people who are doubtful about their conduct. Folks, there's a lot of people who want to hide what's going on in Richmond because they think Washington is a school. It is a school, but it's a school for scandal. And it's not something that we should imitate. So we need to stop this in our own Commonwealth. Now, you are the only ones who can do that. I can propose, you dispose. This has to pass twice, just like the marriage amendment. And we've been used to being watched at by the media and by Washington and Congress for so long, I think we should stare back. I want to set up a Virginia Bill of Rights Commission where we are going to document in detail the abuses and excesses of Washington that's done to Virginia citizens. And because I don't know about you, but I cannot trust the Federal Reserve to monitor our wallets, to monitor the amount of money we have, so whatever it's called right now. The states have authority here to make gold and silver legal tender. I have a statute in which sets up a study to set up an alternative legal tender system to compete with the Federal Reserve. Additionally, I want Virginia to mint ginnies. Now, that's not a drink. To mint gold and silver coins and sell them. Very simple. We're going to compete with the United States Mint. We're not going to let this go. Additionally, I've got two bills that deal with the Freedom of Information Act. Somebody mentioned a hockey stick, which got my attention earlier. In December, I sent the University of Virginia a letter, a Freedom of Information request, and I wanted to know what they had in their files relating to Michael Mann, this fellow who does the CO2. And please, don't breathe out. You may get arrested by the Environmental Protection Agency. They wrote me back a letter. We have nothing in our files, nothing on our servers, nothing anywhere. I said, okay. Ken Cuccinelli uses a different law, and he goes to court. Under oath, they acknowledge, lo and behold, they do have documents in their files. Oh, gee, they lied to Bob Marshall. So I put a statute in which says, you do that, you're fired. But I didn't want to let it go there, so I wrote a second FOIA request to the University of Virginia. They wrote me back a letter and said, we received your request for this information. We're pleased to advise you we'll comply with your request if you send us $8,300 and some dollars. I thought, oh, wow, isn't that cute? Public documents by people paid by the public purse are now hidden from the public based upon an arcane system of filing or a refusal to file documents based on whether they are FOIable or not FOIable. My second Freedom of Information Act says each time you create a document, you're going to decide at that moment, FOIable, not FOIable. You should have a right to this information easily and not go broke trying to find out what your government is doing to you. Now again, because I get so many of my ideas from my constituents, I had a guy call me up in October and said he was trying to find out who to pay his mortgage to. Well, I volunteered myself, but he didn't want to do that. What his problem was, he could not find out who was the current note holder. He said there was something called MARES, and I thought, I don't understand what this is. It means, it's an acronym for Mortgage Electronic Registration System. It's headquartered in Reston. It was devised by all the big banks back in 1995 to set up a system to avoid the county and the city recordation clerks. In 1624, the House of Burgesses passed the first law requiring recording of surveys so you know who owns the property and who has title to it. They were still fighting the Indians. This is the banks now come in here and set up a private system, just like feudal knights, and they're not telling us anything. What they want to do also with this system, which is losing track of all these mortgages because they are not filing the assignments, they want to send it to India. Oh, really? When you're going to go to court and say, well, the document is in Bombay somewhere, how are you going to know who you're paying this to? This is not simply people with foreclosures. This is everybody in here who wants to leave their house or their farm to their children. The chain of ownership is broken. The Supreme Court said in 1872, if you separate the note from the mortgage, you're gone. You can't prove anything. You have no claim to it. We are losing our country in more than one way, and this has got to stop. Transparency has to return to this, and I've got this statute drawn up. Now, I do have one difference with some of my Tea Party friends, and it's dealing with a thing called the repeal amendment. I understand the frustration, and that's why I put in House Bill 10, and that's why I put in these other measures to rifle shot go after some of these things that are going on. Repeal amendment says it's a constitutional amendment called pursuant to a call for a constitutional convention under Article 5 of the Constitution. We haven't had a constitutional convention since 1787. There are no rules. There's no law governing this. There's no requirement that, in fact, everybody be elected to this. There were no record votes back in 1787. The mode of nomination, 30 seconds, okay. I can't read, by the way. I am concerned that our rights are in serious jeopardy if this happens. This is a book right here by Richard Lebonsky, who wrote a very good book on James Madison. In this book right here, he wants to repeal one of our amendments. You don't need three fingers to count to it, folks. A runaway convention is precisely what the guy who devised this, Randy Barnett, wants. I don't think I should threaten your rights, your liberties, with Russian roulette to come up with a solution to problems that there are easier ways to deal with. So I thank you very much for your time, your support, and your patriotism.